Welcome to the Cape Wrath Ultra 2025 participant briefing. My name is Shane Ohly and I am the Event Director. So first of all, I am getting over a bit of a cold, so I have a bit of a tendency to cough. I'm going to excuse myself right now. Yeah, I can feel it coming. So yeah, bear with me if there's a bit of coughing or delayed speech. So we have got a super exciting adventure ahead of you. We're about 2 weeks out from the event, and this briefing will be with you about a week, 10 days before the event. There's a difference between the Cape Wrath Ultra, which is the 400-kilometer version, the full course, if you like. The Explorer, which is a mix and match, you can do essentially the first or the second half of any of the days. And then the Cape Wrath 100, which is the first 100 miles over the first 3 days of the event. Whichever of the versions of the event you're planning to take on, I'm sure that all of the information in this briefing will be relevant and interesting to you. So we're going to kind of push through. It takes about 45 minutes. I know that's quite a long briefing, but it will be helpful. And I would like to just make a real special welcome to you all at the event and just say how much I'm looking forward to seeing you in Fort William later in May. Let's get started. So first of all, what I want to do in this briefing is cover some of the kind of functionary rules-based and emergency information that is helpful for you to understand how the how the event will run. This means that when you get to Fort William, you can really be focused on having a great time, enjoying the event, being relaxed, and us as the organisers, we don't need to kind of spend that kind of morning when we're registered or afternoon when we're registering you focusing on rules and briefing. We can just really focus on the fun, adventurous stuff that is ahead of us all. Also, this gives you some opportunity to reflect on what's said and ask questions in advance of the event. Essentially, I'd like you all to have a really good understanding of ethos and culture that we have at the event before you turn up. So, nature of the challenge. I hope this doesn't need explaining because you are letting yourselves in for an absolutely amazing wilderness adventure. It is the route that the Cape Wrath Ultra takes goes through the greatest wilderness areas in the UK, in Scotland. There's massive amounts of unknown, huge jeopardy actually, and I really believe that you only get true adventure when the outcome is unknown. And it doesn't matter what your fitness level is, how experienced you are. Nobody starts an event as long and as challenging as the Cape Wrath Ultra or the Explorer or the 100 with certainty. So relish it, enjoy it, and I will talk through some of the things that will kind of help your journey unfold in a really positive and exciting way now. First thing I'm going to say is please read the website. There is an enormous amount of information on the website. I am not going to run through details like what time registration opens, when the car park opens, etc., during this briefing. It's all there on the website. And to be quite frank, I'll probably get the timings a little bit wrong. So have a read of the website. Please familiarize yourself with this information before the event. I also want to make it really clear about what my priorities are as the kind of ultimate event organizer, the event director. So first of all, the safety of the event team is my first priority. Very closely behind that is the safety of the participants. And then it's all about logistics. So when you see the structure of the event, which will be very evident when you turn up and you get a sense of start times and cut-off times and guidance times and some of the other kind of functions of an event like the mandatory equipment, they're all there to improve the safety and experience of everybody involved in the event. And what I want to be able to do is be confident that the catering team handling boiling water and gas burners, or our electrician handling power in a wet field, can do all of that safely. And our, emergency response team, when they go out at 10 p.m. for a late finish who's had an accident, is, fit to do that. And ultimately, everybody at the end of the event can drive home safely. So that will always be my priority. Event team, then participants, then logistics to logistics. I know if I get all of those things right, everybody is likely to have a really great time at the event. There are event rules. There's the Cape Wrath Ultra event specific rules. And then also linked off that page on the Cape Wrath Ultra website is a link to the AREA events universal rules. Anybody who's done, a reasonable amount of events will look at those rules and go, yeah, they are absolutely common sense. There's nothing unusual in them. But it is your responsibility as a participant to understand those rules. Please don't ask our, event team, particularly the event volunteers, if they can clarify rules for you. Really, the only people who have a real strong grasp of the rules and all the details of them are myself and some of the senior team within AREA events. I want to be really clear that it doesn't matter if you are the first runner or the last runner. It doesn't matter if you're my best mate or I don't know you. The rules will be applied, and they will be applied blindly to you. I'm not going to give examples of the stuff that people kind of fall foul of. It's all pretty sensible. It's all straightforward. Just take 5 or 10 minutes to read through that before you get to the event. So minimum and mandatory kit. So again, all of the information is on the website, and it will also be included in the kind of race pack that you will be sent out in the final information. I guess the most important things to highlight is there will be a kit check at registration, and we kit check your hill kit, not your camp kit. And you will not be able to register until you pass the kit check. Every day at the event, there will be some kind of kit check. So it will be as you start, and it will be before you hand in your overnight dry bag, with the exception of day one. So, so day 2 onwards, there'll always be a kit check before you get started. The overnight dry bag, it's a specified bag. It's the 79 litre Autoliv dry bag, and it's a maximum weight of 20 kilograms. It will be weighed, and we will apply that rule to everybody so that there is fairness. Okay, navigation. So I guess for people who are not familiar with Scotland, and we do luckily attract a good number of international participants, often the ground in Scotland is really quite severe and challenging. And the footpaths and the tracks and trails are fairly obvious, except for when they're not, but generally they're obvious. And it's actually not that difficult to follow the race route for the vast majority of the event. There are a few areas where it's more challenging. The route is mandatory, and it's marked on the map with an orange line, but we say in the rules that you can have a 200-meter corridor. So if you wander off the race route, you're not going to get penalised for that. But in practice, that 200-meter corridor is unnecessary because the intended route just follows the best path on the ground. It will be the route that you can see. You'll want to stay on it. And my only caveat to that is, don't try and use that 200-meter corridor as a way to cut corners to try and, I guess, gain an unfair advantage. And anyone trying to gain an unfair advantage definitely will fall foul of our rules. We are not intending to place any directional arrows or signs on the route. So there are a few occasions where landowners have put markers up saying Cape Wrath Trail this way. Sometimes those are the same as the race route, sometimes they are not. The route that you are following is the GPX we are issuing you and the race map. The race route always goes to defined crossing points such as stiles and gates and bridges over rivers where they exist. So particularly if you find yourself climbing over a fence or a wall, you have definitely gone wrong. So please check the map and reconsider what you're doing. On the event map, there's various bits of information, the start and finish each day, and then also the checkpoints and the manned checkpoints. There's very few checkpoints that are not manned, but there are some. And often these are on a particular bridge that we want you to use to cross a river, as an example. The manned checkpoints will have personnel at the manned checkpoints. There are guidance times and cut-off times. So if a checkpoint has no personnel, it's an unmanned checkpoint, there will be a guidance time next to it. And that will give you an indication of whether you're on track to finish by 10 p.m. course closure time. That assumes you start at 7 a.m. first start and that you're making steady progress through the course throughout the day. The cut-off times will always be at manned checkpoints, and you need to have left the checkpoint by the cut-off time. We also, I guess, reserve the right to make any guidance time a cut-off time at any point. And sometimes, particularly if there's a slower runner at the back of the race, we will insert our course ops team to meet them at one of those checkpoints. So we'll turn a guidance time into a cut-off time. That's only relevant for people who are going quite slowly. Also on the map, there are cafes, public toilets and things like that marked. There's some really interesting ecological and historical notes. And there's a few warnings as well, such as, steep ground. So have a good look at the map. You get it at registration. The entire map is mandatory. It must not be cut. You need to have it with you at all times. So, excuse me. So day one, there's two waves starting, I think 11 a.m., 12 p.m. Don't quote me on that. You will have pre-selected your start wave. The most important thing to say about that is you can't change it because the start time is pre-programmed. If you are desperate to start with a friend, it is not possible for you to change into start one, but it is possible to change into start two. Please get in touch with the office ASAP because that does need to be set up in advance. Each morning, you can start when you like. You will be given some advice about what time to start. For example, when you finish day two, it might say, when you finish day one, your day two start time might say something like this. If you took under 8.5 hours on day one, you must start after 8:30. Or if you took under 9.5 hours on day one, you must start after 8. Those times are wrong. I know where they've come from. Those are the Dragon's Back timings. Essentially, they will give you some advice on what time to start based on your time from the previous day. We may mandate that faster runners start after 8:30. There's absolutely no point in a fast runner starting at 7 a.m. because you risk getting ahead of our logistics and getting ahead of our safety team. There will be mandatory start times for everybody on day 8. It's a little counterintuitive, this, but we start our fastest runners first and our slowest runners last. All of our slowest runners have always made it comfortably to Cape Wrath in front of the cutoff, so you don't have to worry about that. And this is because there's some very difficult logistics and constraints to get everybody off Cape Wrath on the day. So if we start in the logical way of fastest runners last, everybody arrives at Cape Wrath Lighthouse at the same time, and that it's just not possible to get you all off the Cape if we do it that way around. So race timing. So your official race time is recorded by an RFID chip, so chip timing like you'd see at a 10K or half marathon race. The chip is actually attached to your GPS tracker. Your GPS tracker provides real-time data and your checkpoint splits, but it's done by geofencing. So your checkpoint splits might be plus or minus a few minutes. Don't worry about that. Your actual time for the day is recorded with a chip, and that is super accurate. I'm going to talk briefly about cutoffs and retirements. So the cutoffs are generous. They are designed for someone who is mostly walking and doing a little bit of running. And it is possible to finish those longer days if you start promptly early and you make a good strong effort all day, even if you are mostly kind of hiking rather than running. Extraordinary situations. So if you stop to assist somebody who is in having an emergency, we will do everything possible to flex those cutoff times if that is the difference between you finishing the day or not. But it's not guaranteed. Sometimes the logistics are the logistics. An emergency means something really serious. It means someone who has, fallen over and broken an ankle and cannot move. It doesn't mean walking with your mate who's tired because you want to keep them company. If you do that, you are making a choice to go slowly rather than kind of trying to stay within the cutoffs. The cutoffs will be enforced, so it's really important to the overall logistical plan of the event. It is only possible to retire at a manned checkpoint. Please do not think that you can just give up in the middle of nowhere and be collected. There's many sections on that course where you are not just 1 or 2 miles, but sometimes 6, 7, 8, even 10 miles from the nearest road. So it's serious terrain, it is wilderness, and the only way that we will assist you on the course is if you have an emergency, a true emergency. For people doing the Explorer, first of all, I would just like to say a little bit about the Explorer. I think most people come to the event hoping to do the full Cape Wrath Ultra course. Sometimes people get injured, sometimes people get ill, sometimes just plans don't work out. Perhaps your training has gone to pot in the month or two before the event. It happens. Can I just really emphasize how good the Explorer is? It allows you to do the first half or the second half of each day, and it's absolutely awesome. And it turns what might have been a disappointing experience if you had hoped to do the full course into an amazing running holiday. And if you don't succeed on the full course, and naturally you might be a bit disappointed, please try and reframe it. Enjoy the Explorer. Don't leave the event upset, because that does happen and it's always sad when it does. But join the Explorer, have a brilliant running holiday, and just enjoy having a bit more time each day. Enjoy some of the cafe stops. And actually the Explorer, if you did the Explorer, the long option each day on the Explorer for all 8 days, you still do 250 kilometers in each day over the 8 days. I mean, that's a massive challenge. By any other event standard, the Explorer would be the event. It just happens that it's paired with the Cape Wrath Ultra. One final point, the cutoffs still apply if you're on the Explorer. So just bear that in mind when you start, that you still need to be moving at a fair speed. Just a little bit more about the GPS tracking. So we use YB trackers for the event. These are true satellite trackers, and they can send and receive data from a satellite. So we will always know where you are, even in the most kind of remote spot. It is possible to send a basic text message using these trackers, and we will explain how to do that when you turn up at registration. We can also send you a message. I'd like to say now, every year we will send messages to participants saying, you have missed a turn, you're off route, and your tracker will bleep, and you have to read the message. And every year people don't read the message and they ignore their bleeping tracker, and they compound a small error into sometimes a race-ending error. If your tracker starts bleeping when you're on the course, it is because we are sending you a message. The tracker updates every 15 minutes, so it records its data, its position, quite regularly, every few minutes, buffers all that data together, and then it sends it to us every 15 minutes. So the trackers will jump every 15 minutes and you'll see the route appear. We do that because every packet of data that we send with the satellite is expensive, and it adds up over 8 days and hundreds of participants. Please can you remind friends and family that trackers do sometimes become stationary. Sometimes they do hang up on the map for hours at a time. And if that happens, not to panic. Again, across the whole business, every year we have at least one incident when a well-meaning friend or family member phones the police and asks for mountain rescue for their partner who's on an event whose tracker's become stationary. If you think your partner, your friend's family, parent might be worried about you on the event, by all means share the event control emergency phone number, which you'll get at registration. It's printed on the maps. And they can call event control anytime and we can explain what is going on. And so you can focus on having a good time, being relaxed, and if your friends and family can not be worried about you. One final thing, every step you take is public. So your friends and family watch. We also know landowners and stakeholders watch what you're doing. So yeah, just remember you're always ambassadors for our event in the future. So I'm going to have a few slides about emergency situations. Sorry, I'm trying to fight off the cough. So first of all, there's an emergency protocol printed on your map. And the most important thing to do, if possible, in an emergency is phone us. So that emergency number is on the map. I would suggest you save it to your phone when you turn up at the event. The first thing we will do if you press your SOS button is try and phone you to understand what is happening. If we can't speak to you, and there are large sections of the course where there are no phone receptions, we will have to make a judgment on the seriousness of that SOS button press. And generally speaking, we treat them very seriously. So please, don't use the SOS alert to say you're feeling tired or your knees are sore. Let's say you have broken your shoelaces or you've lost your glasses. These are all real examples. The SOS press should be for, life and limb threatening emergencies. Interestingly, though, people tend, even when we've had very serious accidents in the past, people tend not to press their SOS buttons because they think it's not serious enough. So we would much rather you ask for assistance if you think it's needed than hesitate, because some of the rescues can take a very long time to organise given the remote nature of the course. Excuse me. I just want to, a couple more things to emphasise. Please press the button of the person in peril and not your own button if you see somebody else who's had an accident. We can use the text message functionality to send you a message, or you can send us a message in that situation. And, some very simple additional information makes it a lot easier for us to understand what's going on. So for example, you might say exhausted and collapsed. That tells us everything we need to know about the situation. Or you might say something like, broken ankle or head injury. Though that's all the extra information we need. We don't need an essay. I want to just reassure everybody that we take SOS alerts very seriously, and we will start a rescue for someone who presses a button. I'm just going to give you a bit of an insight into event control and what's going on in the background to allow all that to happen. So event control is run by Abby, who you'll see at the event, Abby's a experienced mountain rescue doctor and critical care doctor, and has been working on our events for over 12 years from the start. And she can provide you with really good advice, and she can do that from a a healthcare perspective, but also from a mountain rescue perspective as well. We have two response teams. These are made up of current, very experienced mountain rescue team members. And one of the reasons we always ask participants to contact us first in an emergency is that our response teams are immediately deployable. They're waiting at the event for any eventualities, which is very different to a local mountain rescue team that needs to kind of come in from home and from work and go to base and then deploy. There's a big time difference, and it's very unusual for a local mountain rescue team to be faster than us at responding to an incident. Sorry about the coughing. We won't hesitate to ask for assistance from a local mountain rescue team or the Coast Guard if we think that is required. So please don't think we are trying to be heroes and come out and save you. If we think we need to escalate an incident, we will do that straight away. All of these pictures are from Cape Wrath Ultra in 2022. And maybe I'll tell you about those if you're interested at the event face to face. Next thing I want to talk about is river crossings. So there's something like 100 river streams or burns in Scotland, as they're called, crossings along the Cape Wrath course. Most of the time, really simple. You can just step across them. You might get your feet, well, you will get your feet wet. But what's kind of typical of Scottish burns is how flashy they are. So if it rains heavily, the streams and rivers rise up very quickly and can become pretty challenging to cross. So the take-home message I would like you to understand from this is that you should never attempt to cross a river if you believe there is a risk of you being swept away. So if there's any doubt, you don't cross. It is nearly always best to head upstream to look for an alternative crossing point, or check the map. There might be a bridge further downstream on the map. If you cannot contact us and we're watching the GPS tracking and we see trackers all getting to a stream when the weather is poor and heading upstream, we'll know exactly what's happened. We'll have an understanding of what you're going through. Don't worry about deviating off the race route in those situations. We'd much rather that you stayed safe. There's a really good article on the Cape Wrath Ultra website providing detailed advice about river crossings and relative heights of that water. Please, 10 minutes of reading that you may find really helpful. Obviously, we're hoping that the weather is fine and there's no rain, no midges, of course, and that river crossings are not problematic for you. In our advice, we talk about relative height. Relative height is important. This is relative height of the water, because the height and the strength of the person crossing makes a big difference to how serious the situation is. Essentially here, relative height 1, which is below knee, you are going to do a lot of crossings like this, and wet feet will be absolutely the last of your worries here. You will have wet feet. We will expect you to just cross rivers and streams like this with no special measures. I'm going to jump to relative height 3, which is thigh deep. So this is 2 people crossing a large stream. Actually, in the Lake District, this photo was taken. And you can see how they're using trekking poles to support themselves. They're holding on to each other for stability. And at this height, relative height 3, you will definitely need to stop, think carefully about a crossing point, group together, use trekking poles for support. And it's likely, if you're needing to do that, the consequences of getting it wrong could be pretty serious, of being swept downstream. This image, hold this image in your head, because this is the limit of what we want you to do when you cross rivers. Anything beyond this is not acceptable. Okay, runner behavior. I'm just going to talk about some of the things that runners can do to, I guess, ease our experience of dealing with landowners and stakeholders. So just please remember you are the ambassadors for every future edition of this event. So please don't jeopardize the access arrangements we have in place. So number one, and I mean absolutely number one request from all the landowners is please use stiles and gates. Please shut the gates. So always shut the gate. Please do not hold the gate open for a runner that's 50 meters behind you and kind of leave it open for them to come through. Because what quickly happens over the passage of 2 or 3 runners is, excuse me, eventually a runner sees the gate is open and leaves it open. So you shut the gate or you stand and hold the gate open all the way through to that person coming through and then shut the gate behind you. Essentially, shut the gate, shut the gate. Please be respectful to people that you meet on the trails. You have no special privileges, no special right of way. So it is very common that you might meet, a seemingly random walker on a remote path, and you're actually speaking to the landowner. So always a respectful hello. It's always best to say hello. Yeah, just please be polite. You are likely to be passing dwellings and buildings very early in the morning or late at night. Please, can you be silent when you pass these buildings at that time of day? And I don't mean talk quietly. I mean, just be silent for 1 minute as you pass a building. And that is very respectful for the people who may be sleeping in the building. And also, please don't shine head torches on the doors and windows. So I mentioned walls. You should never be climbing over a wall. That is definitely not, not part of our plan. And the other thing to mention is toileting. So if you need to go for a wee, please just step a respectful distance away from the path. Have a glance over your shoulder, see if there's another participant coming. I guess, mostly for the men here. Please don't just go for a wee without stepping away from the path or without first checking that there isn't somebody about to appear behind you. If you need to go for a poo, first of all, we would ask that you use the facilities at the overnight camp before you leave. And even if you have to spend, an extra 10 minutes to give yourself time to use the facilities, the portable loos at the overnight camp, that will be quicker than going on the trail later in the day, which is always a faff. We have marked on public loos when they are available. On the map, this is. But if you find yourself caught short, and it does happen, just a couple of things to consider. So please go well away, at least 50 meters from any water source. Dig a hole, and you can dig a hole with your heel. You can kick it into the ground quite easily and create a hole at least, what's that? I don't know, 20 centimeters deep. Human waste in the hole. Any paper waste, ideally put it in a plastic bag, pack it out, and we'll dispose of it at the overnight camp. But it absolutely must be buried if you don't do that. Cover up the hole and you should leave no trace. We have had some incidents in the past of people just going to the loo near the trail, no attempt to bury it, and that has caused us problems with a couple of landowners. Okay, we're nearly there. I now want to talk about inappropriate behaviour. So over the last 18 months, we've spent quite a lot of time and effort at AREA events talking about how we safeguard our participants. And safeguarding can be about any participant, any sex, but almost universally, we're talking about our female participants' experience at the events. There's a really good blog on the AREA events website now. Again, another bit of great reading that you can do when you're traveling to the event. But I just want to give you some examples of what we would deem inappropriate behavior, unwanted attention. So These are all real examples. So a presumption that an ad hoc male-female pairing on the course should continue like that throughout the event, although there's some kind of romantic intent to a polite friendship. So when two runners come together on the course randomly because they're moving at the same speed, that is one of the absolute joys of kind of doing these events. What I would say is not everybody wants to run together. Some people really relish that opportunity to kind of spend time on their own on the hills. So for all participants, when those natural pairings come together, and you don't need to do this in the first 2 minutes, but if time is going along and it's clear you're moving at the same speed, simply ask them, do you mind if we run together? That's a totally reasonable question, and everybody should be expecting it because it's in the briefing. And this is the opportunity for someone to say, you know what, I'm going to have a little break, you push on. That's a very nice, subtle way to say, actually, I'm happy on my own. So simply ask and don't be upset and don't be surprised if somebody says, you know, actually, I quite like to kind of do this section on my own. Okay, so some other examples. A presumption that a lone female participant wants a male partner to run with. A presumption that it's unacceptable to leave a lone female participant on their own. So the next point is the same thing, really. A presumption that a female participant is less competent than a male participant, particularly requiring advice with route choice or navigation. I'm talking about mansplaining stuff here. So I would say the vast majority of our participants at Cape Wrath Ultra are experienced, and you generally will have no idea how experienced the person you are talking to is. So please don't assume because they're a woman that they're any less competent than you are. More examples. Okay, so comments, jokes, and banter about how a female participant looks or dresses. Comments, jokes, and banter of a sexual nature, including innuendo. Running closely behind another participant and not giving them personal space. So unsporting behavior. So the example I see sometimes is the first female finisher coming in, and you have a relatively, average male finisher desperately trying to beat them over the finish line with some kind of heroic sprint. And you're like, you kind of just spoiled the female winner's experience here. That wasn't really necessary. So just be respectful. And then finally, uninvited touching and hugging. What we see at the events quite often is some great friends coming together, giving each other hugs. And this is within the participants and the event team. Again, it's a wonderful thing. But if you don't know that person, please don't assume that that's okay for you to do that as well. Just look for the subtle social cues and look for the invitation if you think giving someone a hug is the right thing to do. Okay, final thing here, in the dark. Not many people will be out in the dark at Cape Wrath because there's wonderfully long days. But our event team are briefed if they come up to a participant in the dark to say, hi, I'm Shane from the Cape Wrath Ultra. Is that Sue, for example? So that if you're the person in the dark that sees a head torch coming towards you, you immediately know, oh, this is someone from the Cape Wrath and they know my name. And the event team will know your name because we'll have the GPS tracking. Likewise, if you're a participant meeting up with another runner in the dark, just say, hi, I'm John taking part in the Cape Wrath Ultra. What's your name? Just introduce yourself in the dark. It can really take the sting out of those sometimes intimidating situations in the darkness in the hills. Okay, enough said. I hope I made my points. I'm going to talk very quickly about rural roads. So you will be on some roads during Cape Wrath Ultra. The vast majority of these roads are very quiet rural roads. What's interesting about these is that the local drivers generally do not expect walkers and runners to be on these roads. And they often drive amazingly fast. So it's really important that you as the participant are really alert to vehicles. You look both left and right. You think about overtaking vehicles when you cross the road. So sometimes the oncoming traffic's on the wrong side. And you also think about silent or very quiet vehicles, electric vehicles, but bikers and cyclists as well. Please do not use headphones when you're on the roads. It's just not worth it. And being able to hear traffic is a really important safety measure. Okay, quick thing about water. So you will be provided with potable water at the overnight camps each day. We do not provide water on the course. And historically, we've always said the water in Scotland is generally very safe to drink. So particularly if you're taking water from upland streams, most water in Scotland you can drink without treating. However, last year we had a norovirus outbreak at the event, which was linked back to contaminated water taken from near Bothy on day 2. So I think if you're sourcing water low down near places where lots of people go to, like the Bothys, you absolutely should treat it. And I think really our advice has to shift and say, if you're taking water from natural sources on the route during the day, you should filter and or treat it. I think it would be, it's very disappointing if you've invested all that time and energy training and preparing for Cape Wrath, and then you get a kind of vomiting bug on day 3. So do your best to look after yourself. I think you should treat the water that you source during the event. So far, a bit more about washing. So at each of the overnight camps, there will be sorry, a river or stream that you can get into and wash. However, you must not use soap, even kind of ecologically friendly soap in that water. It's just not acceptable. So you just have to rinse off with water. And actually, a pack of wet wipes back in your tent are pretty good for a final freshen up after you've done that. So just a quick summary here. So Camp 1, good river within 100 meters. Camp 2, kind of smaller river within 100 meters. Camp 3, really good river, but it's about 300 meters away. Camp 4, about 400 meters to the river. Camp 5, about 200 meters. Camp 6, brilliant lock. Camp 7, brilliant lock. So you can get in the water and get cleaned up. Okay, briefly about overnight camps. I'm conscious we're on about 40 minutes now. So the main marquee is where you'll be able to find the info point and sorry, I'm coughing, and also access Ultramail. Right, I have another sip of coffee. So head to the info point for any information that you want. It might be a query about results, timings, rules, but the info point in the main marquee is your first point of call. It's also where we will print the Ultramail. Please tell your friends and family about Ultramail, because getting those messages is such a joyful experience for the participants, and it can really turn around a day into something special. Catering. Right, I'm not going to talk about the menu, that's all on the website. We will be serving breakfast from about 5:30 till 8:30 in the morning. And there's finisher snacks from the first finisher, that's soup, chips, cakes, first finisher until 10 p.m. And then an evening meal served from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. as well. Sorry, one thing I want to just emphasize, there is plenty of food. However, no one item is unlimited. And also the food gets heated up in bain-maries. And sometimes you might come into the catering area and there might not be one particular item left, or there might be a 15-minute delay until we have more of the main meal that comes out of the ovens. Every year, what happens is somebody comes into the kitchen as they're finishing off serving like the main meal, and the next dish coming out of the oven is 10 minutes behind because there's been a bit of a rush. And the caterers say you're going to need to wait 10 or 15 minutes if you want some more of this. And within 5 minutes, a rumor has gone around the campsite that we have run out of food. We have never run out of food. So just listen carefully. I know if you're really hungry, it can be a bit disappointing if you can't eat what you want immediately, but just listen to what the catering team says. There is always food. No one item is unlimited at any one time, so sometimes you might need to wait. There is tea and coffee and hot drinks. There's a little bit of milk available to go in the hot drinks, but we do not provide milk for you to drink. So please don't come to the event thinking you can have a pint of milk and mix in a protein shake. There's just simply not enough milk for that. You will need your own plate, bowl, mug, cutlery for each time you eat. Anybody finishing very late, so this is after 10 p.m. for whatever reason, we will plate up your food and save it for you. And there will be some food, but it'll be microwaved to warm it up. Okay, I'm going to do a few highlights from a medical side. So first of all, I'm not a healthcare professional. You might well see me hanging out in the med tent and doing helping out here and there. But there's a lot that I've learned over the years as a race organizer and watching what does work, doesn't work for participants. Some headlines: please drink to thirst. So don't come to the event with a plan that you're going to drink X amount of fluid an hour. If you feel thirsty, drink. If you do not feel thirsty, don't drink. Using electrolyte is generally the right thing to do. People, their palates change over the days, over 8 days. So having really varied food and eating little and often seems to be the right approach for most runners. Be bothered. And I'm talking about having a hot spot or being cold or being warm. If you feel something's not right, deal with it straight away. Don't wait until you get to that next checkpoint and that hot spot has become a blister. Don't wait until the checkpoint to put on your sun hat and find your lips burnt, which ends your race because you can't eat properly afterwards. So be bothered, be proactive about sorting problems. The medical provision is light touch. So, we are there to help you and support you, but please, don't expect, a field hospital. Please come and ask for help and advice early. We'd much rather you came into the tent and said, can I have some help with X before X is a problem for you? Please do not take non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So this is things like ibuprofen, diclofenac, Voltarol. They really do not mix well with endurance sport, and you put yourself at significant risk of causing injury to your kidneys, even your heart and your guts if you're taking those kind of painkillers. If you need painkillers, paracetamol is the recommended solution. So I'm going to just briefly mention the blisters. On the website, there's a huge amount of information about how you manage blisters. Please, I hope you've read this and done some good foot preparation by now. We treat about 50% of all the participants for blisters at Cape Wrath Ultra. So anything you can do to protect your feet and mitigate blister injury will be beneficial. Something to mention is ticks and Lyme disease. So ticks, there are lots of ticks in Scotland, and it would be unusual, almost unheard of, for anybody on the event, participant or event team, not to have at least 1 or 2 ticks on them each day. I'm saying each day. So best thing you can do is clean yourself up properly before after you finish running, and then carefully check your legs, ankles, backs of knees, groin, around the waist belt of your shorts or trousers or skirt, and look for ticks. If you think you have a tick and you're not sure, just come to the medical tent for some advice. If you're confident to remove them, by all means remove them. If you'd like some help, come to the medical tent and we can help you take them out. Anybody who has one of these bullseye rashes, that's strong indication of Lyme disease, and it will be treated appropriately at the event. But if you have a rash like that after a tick bite, please come to the med tent, and also be aware that the symptoms of Lyme disease, like the bullseye rash, flu-like symptoms, so fatigue, muscle joint pains, headaches, they can take, 3 to 30 days to turn up. And that bullseye rash only appears about half the time with an infected tick bite. If you have any of these symptoms, straight to your GP, explain you've had a tick bite, and get appropriate treatment from them. One final thing to say, Lyme disease is rare. Only a tiny proportion of ticks carry it, but it's definitely not something you want to get. Okay. Can you see that? Good, it's loaded. So overnight emergencies. Every year there will be a couple of people during the night who feel medically unwell and require some assistance during the night. So if you are unwell and you really think it cannot wait until the morning, you can come to the medical tent, and on a sign outside the medical tent are 2 doorbells. One of them says medical emergency and one says overnight help. Press the medical emergency button and that will ring. It's like this is a video doorbell camera. It will ring the phone of the duty medic and they will come and assist you. It might take a couple of minutes for them to arrive. They'll need to get up, get out of bed, out of their tent, get some clothes on, and come across to you. So it might take a few minutes. If there's no response, look for the flashing red light. And from the medical tent, if you look around, there should be a vehicle parked pretty close to the medical tent with a flashing red light on it, which will also be the duty medic. If you have another type of incident that requires help overnight, so perhaps, I don't know, your airbed has failed, the tent is deflated, something like that, like an operational problem, press the other button, overnight help, and somebody from the ops team will get up to help you. I'm nearly there. Sorry, I know it's taken a while. I think my coughing hasn't helped. Just a quick thing to say about filming. When you entered the event, you all gave consent to be filmed. If you do not want to be filmed, just wave off the camera. So just do that. No, 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 no. And the media team have been briefed not to film people who don't want to be filmed. I would just say that the moments when you feel like you're having that personal moment, a bit tearful or elated with happiness, often make the best moments of our kind of event films, though. Right, I'm nearly there. Please, if you have any questions, get in touch with us now. You've got, a week or 10 days before the event. You can call the office, you can phone the office, you can email the office, you can do live chat with the office. We'd much rather help you with questions before you get to the event than wait till you turn up at registration and you don't have X, Y, or Z. Right, so that's quite a long briefing. I hope that it's been very useful for you. I know there's a bit of a focus on rules and procedures, safety. I hope it doesn't come across too draconian. What I want you to have is a great understanding of what a good event looks like and how we are working really hard to facilitate that event experience for you. I know that a coherent structure, rules, bomb-proof logistics, universal fairness, all of these are actually the kind of secret formula of a great event. Ultimately, I'm a runner, just like you. The vast majority of the event team are runners as well. We just want you to have an absolutely extraordinary experience and come home with, lifetime memories of a brilliant time in the Scottish Highlands. So, can't wait to see you in Fort William. I can't wait to get started on the Cape Wrath Ultra. It is my favourite event. There is nothing like the journey through the Scottish Highlands. So good luck with your final preparations and I will see you very soon. Thank you.